G'day, Stephen Page from Page Provan Family Fertility Lawyers, and today I want to talk about the ACT with its Assisted Reproductive Technology Act 2024 and one aspect of that. And that aspect is the ability of the parents to know the identity of the donor. When the ACT was looking at bringing in this act last year, it gave stakeholders all of 14 days to respond. Just terrible process. And then that was it. Now, Queensland did the same kind of thing. We'll give you, I think it was 13 days to respond. They issued the email on the Monday and they said Sunday week you can respond by. And I thought, oh, here we go, a repeat. But to the credit of the Queensland officials, they then kept engaging with stakeholders and had more sessions, both private sessions and to stakeholders in general, and listened and took on board. The ACT didn't. And here we have the example of what happens when they didn't. The ACT government is clearly concerned to make sure that its IVF clinics are not viable. And it's done that in one of two ways. Well, it's done it in two ways, I should say. The first is that with posthumous reproduction, as I've said in my video about posthumous reproduction changes, it's now brought in a requirement that if the deceased has not consented in writing to the posthumous use, authority of a Supreme Court judge is required to proceed. Now, that's never been the requirement before, and widows from around Australia have exported their sperm to the ACT in Queensland to be able to reproduce posthumously through the clinics there. Well, that's going to stop in the ACT because Queensland doesn't have that requirement. So that work is going to move from the ACT to Queensland. Thank you to the ACT government for helping Queensland IVF clinics. And the second way they've done it is to say, well, after this Part 5 of the Assisted Reproductive Technology Act commences, from that day forward, for any child born after that day through egg, sperm or embryo donation, the parent will, after the birth of the child, be able to find out the identity of the donor. So if you think that you're a donor who has been told, well, the child can find out when they're 18, and you're thinking, okay, well, it's 2022, 18 years is a long way away, we're looking at 2040, if my maths are right, and I'm a lawyer, I'm not so good on maths, but it's about 2040, and then discover, well, it's actually going to be in 2024 and 2025. That's what's happened. No consultation about that change, none. None with the industry, outside the rules of every other state in Australia, and you'd have to say, why did they do it? Well, I understand why they did it, but what's going to be the effect of it? Well, if you're an intended parent and you're going to be seeking to use a donor, for example, donor sperm, and it's not a known donor, and you're looking at going to a clinic in the ACT, you may think, well, that's a bit confronting, but particularly if you're the clinic, you might be saying, well, we have donors, for example, from the United States, who don't want to be found out so quickly. So what do I see is going to happen? There is going to be a movement of intended parents who would have accessed treatment in the ACT, and they'll go interstate. And where will they go? Well, the two places they're most likely to go are Queensland and Victoria. Why? Well, because the cap limit in the ACT is up to 10 nationwide, and Queensland and Victoria have the same cap limit. And that's the number of women who can receive genetic material. New South Wales is 5, which in practice means 4. So if you're living in Canberra and you find out that you don't have donor sperm because donors aren't prepared to donate under those circumstances in the ACT, you're unlikely to drive down the road to Sydney or Albury. More likely you're going to be driving or flying to Brisbane, Gold Coast or Melbourne. So really dumb economically decision by the ACT government and done without any consultation. So again, good for Queensland IVF clinics. Thank you very much, ACT Government. You've done 2 own goals. Well appreciated. Thank you. Stephen Page, Page Provan Family and Fertility Lawyers.